The next witness is the Reverend Dr. Ann Armstrong. Welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you. So the word by which cannabis is called in the law, I'd just like to call your attention because there was a material change in circumstances last spring. The state of Hawaii made a legislative finding of fact that that M word is racist in its inception and use in the English language and produces bias in the hearer. And so because it's racist and it's a slang word, which means it's profane, I had written, and I'd like to call your attention to the little jars of soap because I was hoping we could clean up our language and use the proper botanical and biblical term cannabis instead of that race. It's racist. And now that there's a finding of fact from a legislature, there's nothing really that can rebut it. It levels the playing field for people trying to explain this. As an example of the bias-producing effect of that word, you know, we're talking about medicine. Most medicines, people have health insurance. The health insurance pays for their medicine when they're sick. They don't have to come up with $400 a week cash to go buy medicine. They have health insurance, but we can't provide health insurance for cannabis because of federal rules. I don't really know why. So, you know, the reason that the market is in so much for turmoil is because the price was kept very, very high by, if you've taken macro and microeconomics, the forced artificial scarcity of prohibition drove the price up. Now people are growing rather, and there's a lot more on the market, and so in some places the casual sales price, and I don't like to use the term black market because that's also a racist term that came from Harry J. Anslinger saying black people shouldn't be allowed to have cannabis because it affects them badly. And so white people could have it. It used to be the #1 medicine in the US pharmacopoeia until 1942, and it was listed as a critical strategic war resource for fiber fuel, food, for hemp seed and medicine, until we were tricked into banning it before, in 1937, before Hitler's Blitzkrieg, and so on and so forth. We've included all that information, but what I would like to bring to your attention is two things. Our church, which is the trunk of all the churches of antiquity. I represent the Hebrew Catholic trunk, which the Blessed Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Elizabeth, Joanna, and the other women have always kept. We are Hebrew Catholics, and my position as deaconess is analogous to the mome. And the way grace flows in the church, there's the Jews, and salvation is from the Jews, and then there's the Hebrew Catholic trunk, and then like the Roman branch, Maronite Catholic, so on and so forth. All those branches of churches flow through the Hebrew Catholic Church, and it has always been from us that they got the balsam for their chrism oils, because every single Catholic church of valid apostolic succession uses cannabis balsam or hashish as one of the ingredients infused in their chrism oils. They always have. We always will. A law from 80 years ago will not change the 2,000-year-old practice of the Catholic Church. And so here in Rhode Island, we've always been safe. And Cannon Gordon and I have published a number of books. They're available online, documenting all the cannabis art in the Catholic churches. In 2015, we walked in a 400-mile pilgrimage down to D.C. when Pope Francis was there, asking him to help us remind people that the Catholic Church has always relied on cannabis in the sacrament of anointing of the sick and so on. And he replied a number of ways in his speeches, and also tangibly. You can still go see it. Go to the cathedral on Fenner Street in Providence, go in, turn around, left-hand back door, the papal seal that Pope Francis sent To thank me for my pilgrimage, he changed his ancestral family crest from grapes to a bud, and it is a very clearly bud hanging in the cathedral here.
Reverend, I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you please direct your testimony to Article 17 of the budget? I think I understand you may have been providing with some background information.
Yes. So as far as this,
excuse me, I didn't interrupt you.
I'm so sorry.
And I do apologize. But could you please connect your testimony to Article 17 of the budget?
Okay, yes, I will. And just very, very quickly, that's a cannabis flower. She's a patron saint of cannabis medicine. And this, which I'm going to give to the clerk to give to you,
Certainly.
solves the problem for everyone, because this bill describes a zero-sum game.
If you're going to testify, I'm going to ask you to testify at the microphone, please, so that we can get it on the record.
We developed a way that works with the existing tax code to get free cannabis, tested cannabis medicine to everyone in a way that lets everyone have a chance growing without violating Article 1, Section 2 of the Rhode Island Constitution, which is equal, fair, and share alike. This funds free cannabis medicine, pays the growers and chefs, funded by reducing taxes on wealthy investors. It can work for any social service, but it works best for cannabis because that high markup, for example, a pound of cannabis medicine made into medibles is sold at these compassion centers for $30,000. So a pound of cannabis medicine that maybe cost them $1,000 to grow, a little bit of work to $30,000 when they make because they make 3,000 dosed medibles and they sell them for $10 a piece. That's not a 400% markup. That is a disgusting, obscene markup, but we can leverage that into some regenerative funding because the U.S. tax code, when you make in-kind donations, lets you use what the retail rate is, and that's their own, retail rate. The other thing I wanted to say about this bill and so on is that we're talking about growing green plants indoors under electric lights. It costs 1 million watt-hours of electricity to grow a pound of cannabis. So when the police bust into somebody's grow or they catch somebody on the road with 135 pounds of cannabis or something, that is 135 million watt-hours of electricity you're throwing away, not to mention the fact that 135 cancer patients could receive enough medicine to cure their patient, because it takes about a pound of medicine to cure a case of cancer. So, in order to meet all the demands of the state, including reducing our output of greenhouse gases and, God forbid, turning away the threat of offshore drilling in Narragansett Bay, we have to put these plants outside under the sun. It's folly to grow them indoors. It's insanity when we're using fracked oil that causes cancer in one place by putting toxins out into the environment to cure somebody else's cancer. And then, so I just want to ask you to consider the bad effects of making people grow green plants in an air-conditioned warehouse when it's 90 degrees and sunny outside.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Any comments or questions for this witness?